Discovered, the incredible story of a black homeless man reclaiming his life as a racing legend, in the heart of a bustling urban neighborhood, where dreams often flicker out like streetlights at dawn, lived Marcus. Once a blazing star on the racetracks of America, he now faced a day-to-day struggle in a makeshift camp, blankets draping his shoulders like faded racing flags. Among scattered bits of memorabilia, a cracked trophy, yellowed photographs, and a racing helmet, each piece bore witness to his glory days. The rich scent of burnt rubber lingered in his memory, a reminder of speed and excitement long gone, replaced by the harsh reality of isolation. Just a few years back, Marcus held his grandfather's hand, the steady grip of a World War II veteran, instilling values of grit and hard work that propelled him to victory after victory. But after losing him, everything crumbled. The community he loved turned away, eyes averted, viewing him not as Marcus, the athlete, but as just another statistic in a world consumed by crime and economic disparity. In the silence of his new reality, the echoes of judgment stung deeper than any crash on the track could. Sitting by a crumbling wall, a local teen approached cautiously. "Hey, aren't you the guy who raced at Maplewood?" The question ignited a tiny spark in Marcus's heart. As he shared tales of roaring engines and checkered flags, he felt a warmth envelop him, laughter cutting through the shroud of loneliness. The kid's eyes lit up, their admiration shining brighter than the sun filtering through the grimy streets. Marcus connected with these young dreamers, inspiring them to see beyond the shadows of his present. Together, they formed a small crew, fueled by the hope of reigniting his legacy and building a bridge between their generations. "We can bring you back, man." They cheered, each voice lifting his spirits higher. Then, the improbable happened. A local race was announced, a chance that seemed almost too good to be true. The community rallied, hopes swelling like the engines they adored. But just as the excitement buzzed, disaster struck. The very gear Marcus needed, a piece of racing genius, vanished in the night, his precious tools turned to ash. Despair gripped like a vice, not just around him, but around the hearts of those who believed in him. "Why does this happen to you?" whispered a young girl, tears shimmering in her eyes. The question lingered like a cloud too heavy to lift. In that moment of darkness, Marcus remembered his grandfather's words: resilience and unity could conquer the fiercest of storms. He stood tall, pulse racing like a revving engine. "Listen up," he declared, voice booming with passion. "This isn't just about me. It's about us. It's time we rise together." The crowd stirred, whispers transforming into a chorus of support. They poured in their resources: old tires, tools, and even a little cash. As they embraced him, barriers of prejudice crumbled. Hope, like a wildflower in concrete, bloomed anew. As the date of the race approached, the community began to understand that each spark of kindness reignited their own dreams. But lurking still were doubts, a shadow of fear that threatened to pull them back. Could they truly see Marcus for the man he was, not the man they thought he had become? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As race day loomed closer, Marcus felt the weight of hopes on his shoulders. Would he finally reclaim the life and honor stripped away by fate? Or would the ghosts of prejudice drag him back under? As excitement buzzed through the air, one thing was certain: the crowd was ready to witness not just a race, but a daring comeback that could change everything. Under the midday sun, the atmosphere shifted, morphing into a blend of anticipation and anxiety. The local track was alive, buzzing with everyone who believed. Creamy clouds painted the sky as families, kids, and racers filled the stands, their chatter melding into a symphony of hope. This wasn't just Marcus's race, it was theirs, too, a unifying moment for a community hungry to see something pure come alive. As he prepared his gear, the sound of thrumming engines reverberated in his chest. Each throb echoed his past, a melodic reminder of what once was. The crew he had rallied stood nearby, tightening bolts and setting the final pieces of his modest racer. Old parts gleamed, polished by hands eager to nurture a dream. They looked up at him, eyes filled with a mixture of admiration and nervous expectation. Kids paused their banter to steal glances at the man they had come to believe in. "Marcus! You got this!" One of the boys shouted, making a fist pump in the air. He smiled, the pressure lifting ever so slightly. "It's South all about the drive, right? Let's make some noise." With the last of his tools secured, he climbed into the makeshift racer. The seats felt foreign yet comforting, almost as if they remembered him. As he adjusted his helmet, he could feel the weight of all those who believed in him. They had invested their hopes in him, and that was more precious than any championship trophy, but deep in the pit of his stomach, doubts nagged. What if he hadn't trained hard enough? What if the ghost of fear crept up again, owning him like it had before? He took a deep breath, recalling his grandfather's steady confidence. "Focus, the race was about to begin." The announcer's voice vibrated through the crowd, filling the air with electric energy. "Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the race. Get ready for a thrilling ride." Engines revved, and as the flag dropped, Marcus felt adrenaline pulse through him like the roar of a race car at full throttle. He shot off the line, the world blurring into a whirlwind of colors, sound, and the thrill of speed. Each turn was a reminder of the countless hours spent training, practicing maneuvers that now came as second nature. He found his rhythm, the car swaying slightly under him, the engine's hum filling him with exhilaration. Sights of familiar faces in the stands mixed with blurred figures of competitors. With every lap, he pushed harder, channeling the fears and doubts into strength. Moments of doubt flickered to life now and again, but for each fleeting insecurity, he found his footing. But just as he approached the final lap, a harsh reality struck. A competitor on his right shunted him wildly, metal scraping violently. His heart pounded. This was not just his past, but a future waiting to unfold. Would this setback crush the hope he had fought so fiercely for? Every instinct screamed for him to retreat, to accept defeat. But looking at the crowd, he saw their faces, urging him on, their unwavering faith reigniting his spirit. Fueled by the belief of a community that had come alive again, he tightened his grip on the wheel and closed his eyes for just a moment. He could feel the grip of his grandfather's hand. "In this race, I am not alone," he shouted to himself. He opened his eyes, determination igniting within him. Staking everything, his past, his present, and the future he was reclaiming, he surged ahead, pushing the boundaries of speed and skill like never before. The finish line glimmered ahead, a beacon of hope and renewed purpose. Marcus dug deeper, the familiar thrill of victory just within reach, but as the finish line approached, the realization hit: the outcome could determine not just a race, but the perception of a man that had once been forgotten. As he crossed the line, cheers erupted, echoing in his ears like music after a long silence. Yet, in the corner of his eye, something seemed off. There was a countdown clock failing to appear on the scoreboard. What did this unexpected revelation mean for him? All of a sudden, the thrill of the moment gave way to a surge of anxiety as reality settled. What if he hadn't actually won? The crowd's roar started to blend into a blur of voices, and uncertainty began to claw at him once more. What awaited him after crossing that line? Would he earn validation, or would more challenges arise? The cheers faded into a murmur, leaving Marcus standing in a whirlwind of confusion. He expected to feel elation, but as he unbuckled himself from the seat, a knot tightened in his chest. The celebratory energy from the crowd now hung in the air awkwardly. He scanned the scoreboard, desperately searching for confirmation of his victory, but there was nothing. Just an empty space where the numbers should have been. "Hey, Marcus!" The shout from one of his crew members cut through the fog of uncertainty. It was Jesse, a young mechanic whose face was flushed with excitement. "You totally crushed it out there. Seriously, everyone saw how fast you were going." But even as she spoke, doubt flickered in his mind. Did I really win? he asked, his voice unheard over the crowd that filled the stands. A gnawing uncertainty wrapped around him like a thick fog. He wanted to celebrate but couldn't shake this unsettling feeling. Jessie's smile faltered as she caught the tension in his shoulders. "You've got this, man. Whatever it is, don't let it get to you," she urged him, but the reality of the situation loomed much larger than her words as he stepped out of the car and faced the throng of people gathering around him. Their hopeful eyes scrutinized his features. Would they see the determination he felt, or the anxiety clawing away at his confidence? They were counting on him, and whether he had won or not, the stakes had never felt this high. The announcer's voice crackled to life again, echoing through the stands. "Ladies and gentlemen, we seem to have a slight issue with the scoring system. We'll have an update shortly." There it was, the delay that felt like a punch to the gut. The crowd buzzed with whispers. Marcus felt the weight of their anticipation crush down on him. He had fought hard to step back into this world, to reclaim a piece of himself that had been lost. All these folks had followed him, believed in him, and now he wondered if he could bear the thought that he might not deliver. "Let us focus on what we can control," he muttered to himself, hoping to drown out the swirling doubts. Shifting from foot to foot, he caught sight of his grandfather's old leather jacket draped over a chair nearby. Its presence was a grounding force, pulling him away from the chaos of the moment. Before he could make a move towards the jacket, the weight of another's presence hit him. A tall figure approached, his face obscured by the shadows of his hat. Just as Marcus was about to dismiss him, he lifted his chin, revealing a familiar face. Mike, a rival from his earlier days. "Surprised to see you back, Marcus," Mike said with a half-smirk, crossing his arms. "Thought you were done for good." The animosity in Mike's voice fueled an internal fire within Marcus. This wasn't the time for old feuds, but something in Mike's demeanor pushed him to confront the past. "I've had a lot of time to think while I was gone," Marcus replied, a simmering intensity rising in his chest. "And trust me, I'm not going anywhere." Mike chuckled, taking a step closer. "You might want to reconsider. The records don't lie. But I'm guessing you already know about the championship implications, huh? No win here means you won't get that ticket back," he jabbed, his gaze piercing like a drill. Marcus clenched his fists, unsettled. The weight of this moment wasn't just a personal race, it was about reclaiming dignity, respect, and a part of his life he thought was gone forever. Just as he turned away to reflect, the crowd erupted around him again, a swell of noise breaking like waves against the shore. "Marcus! Marcus!" Their chant filled the air, intertwining with the pulse of his racing heart. Maybe it didn't matter what the scoreboard said. Then, from the corner of his eye, he saw Jessie rushing toward him, waving a piece of paper. "They've got the results. You need to see this." As she reached him, hope surged anew. What awaited them? Was this the validation he had been fighting for, or another hurdle standing in his way? With an anxious breath and a pounding heart, he took the paper from her. Staring at the numbers that could change everything. The paper shook slightly in his hands as he unfolded it, heart racing in sync with the buzzing crowd. 1,000 thoughts crashed through his mind. What if it was bad news? What if it was all a mistake? He took a deep breath, trying to steady himself while his eyes flicked over the printed numbers. "Let us see it," Jessie urged, excitement lighting up her face. The way she looked at him, filled with hope, pushed the crowd noise into a distant hum. He felt their anticipation, their belief in him. It ignited a flame of determination deep within him. Finally, Marcus focused, letting the chaos fade away. There it was, in black and white. His name boldly printed at the top, and right next to it, the number that could alter everything. First place. His jaw dropped, disbelief gripping him. A wave of relief flooded over him like a cool breeze. I won," he stammered, looking to Jessie, who was bouncing on her toes with a joyful scream. The sensation hit him like the roar of the engines he loved. The podium, the championship, everything hung on this single moment. The crowd erupted into joyous roars. "Marcus! Marcus!" Their chants merged into a harmonious chorus that felt like a warm embrace. He hadn't just won, he had reclaimed his place. But beneath the surface, anxiety still tugged at him. Then he noticed Mike in the sidelines, his smirk now twisted into a scowl. Did that second-place finish sting? Marcus felt a twinge of satisfaction, proving his determination, yet he couldn't forget the implications this victory had for both of them. Congratulations, Mike spat, stepping closer again. But don't get too comfortable. Winning today doesn't mean you can keep up with the best. The tension hung thick between them, like an unspoken challenge. Marcus straightened his shoulders. I'll take any challenge you throw at me, he responded, forcing confidence into his stance. This wasn't just about racing, it was about standing up for himself, proving that he belonged. But then, as Mike walked away, another wave of uncertainty washed over him. Was he truly ready to face the pressure that would come with this victory? Could he handle the spotlight now, knowing what was at stake? Just as he caught his breath, Jessie pulled him toward the awaiting media who were already scrambling for interviews. We've got to get you out there. She looked up at him, eyes shining with pride. They want to hear your story. He hesitated, feeling the weight of responsibility clawing at him again. The crowd still roared, but suddenly it felt like they were waiting on him to speak, waiting for him to inspire them, just like he once was. He took a deep breath, handing the crumpled paper back to Jessie. I need a moment, he said, stepping away from the clamor. The quiet felt both comforting and nerve-wracking, yet as he glanced back toward the riled crowd, determination surged within him. It wasn't just about racing, it was about reaching those who had watched him stumble and rise again. He had something valuable to share, but what if he told them about the struggles he faced? What if they saw him not just as a winner but as someone who had walked through shadows? The weight of truth beckoned him. What stories lay tangled within his journey? With renewed courage, he turned back toward Jessie and the cameras. This was his moment, but not just for glory, this was a chance for connection and authenticity. And while he stepped back into the intense spotlight, an unexpected thought flickered in his mind. Could sharing his truth make a difference beyond racing? As he found his voice amidst the noise, another shadow loomed behind him. Was Mike really done with him, or was the rivalry just beginning? Marcus stepped back into the tumultuous sea of cameras and microphones, the weight of the spotlight heavy upon his shoulders. As he stood there, he felt as if he was on the precipice of something life-changing. He could hear the rhythmic clatter of shutters, the impatient buzz of reporters vying for a sound bite, a cacophony that both exhilarated and terrified him. Marcus, over here. One reporter called, shoving a microphone in his direction. Another shouted, what's next for you after this incredible win? He hesitated for a heartbeat, his mind racing. What should he say? It wasn't just about the victory. It was about all those lonely nights he had spent dreaming of this moment, every setback, every scrape and bruise along the way. Marcus started, but the words caught in his throat. Jessie stood beside him, beaming with pride and encouragement, but he felt the weight of expectation pushing down on him. Just be honest. She whispered, nudging him gently. They want to hear your story. Her words were like a lifeline, pulling him back from the swirling chaos. He took a deep breath, grounding himself in the moment. I didn't just win today, he began, voice trembling slightly, but growing stronger with each word. I've fought for every inch of this journey. I've faced struggles that seemed insurmountable, the heartbreaks, the doubt. But I held on to a dream. The reporters leaned in closer, curiosity piqued. He could see the rapt attention in their eyes. 2 years ago, I was homeless, he confessed, feeling a rush of vulnerability. Racing was my escape. It was the only thing that made me feel alive. And with every challenge, I just kept telling myself, keep going. Nothing can stop you if you don't give up. The crowd shifted, a hush fell over them. He could sense the change in the air, a collective leaning in as he shared his truth, the delicate thread connecting him with those listening. Winning is great, but it's not everything, he continued, the words cascading from his heart. What matters more is how you get there and who you become along the way. Applause erupted around him, warm and supportive. Jessie's eyes sparkled as she grinned, pride radiating from her. He could see nods of understanding in the crowd, as if his story had touched something deep within them, but just as the warmth of connection crested like a wave, something inside him twisted. In sharing his struggles, he had opened up vulnerabilities, leaving room for doubt. What if they turned on him? What if Mike used this against him? The shout of a familiar voice cut through the atmosphere, the sharp, condescending tones of Mike. So, what now, Marcus? Are you just going to be the poster boy for hard luck stories? That familiar scowl dashed fear through Marcus. He had thought Mike would back off after losing. Come on. Mike continued, striding towards him, face twisted in mockery. You think you're suddenly a hero? Just because you tell a sad story doesn't mean you can race with the best. Marcus clenched his fists, battling a rush of indignation. Before he could respond, Jessie stepped forward, unwavering as she faced Mike. You don't get it. This isn't just about racing for him. It's inspiration. In that moment, Marcus felt a surge of anger mixed with determination. He knew he couldn't let Mike's words undermine the truth he had just shared. Behind him, the crowd seemed to ignite, rallying around him, fueling the fire within. Was this going to be the beginning of a heated rivalry, or could it become a chance for him to prove that his story mattered more than just a race? He took a breath, eyes narrowing at Mike. This was just the first lap, but he was far from finished. As the buzz around them grew louder, was he prepared for the battles ahead, both on the track and off? And what would it cost to openly confront everything that Mike represented? The atmosphere throbbed with tension, as if the entire world had paused to see what would happen next. Marcus's heart raced, not just from adrenaline but from the emotional cocktail brewing inside him. Worries about the press, the competition, and Mike's taunts collided in his mind. He had come so far, and now, he was at a crossroads that could define him. Leave him alone, Mike, Jessie said, her voice steady and fierce. The way she stood, shoulders squared, was an anchor for Marcus. It was clear she wouldn't let him stand alone, and in that shared strength, he found a surge of courage. Why, Jessie? Mike spat, his condescension dripping like acid. You think being a sob story makes him special? People forget. You know what they remember? The winners. That struck like a bell, ringing through the air. But in a moment when he might have crumpled, something shifted inside Marcus. Anger became resolve. He stepped forward, breaking the line of Jessie's protective stance, his voice steady now. Yeah, maybe you're right, he said, meeting Mike's glare with unyielding eyes. But here's the difference, my story isn't just mine to tell. It's about every person who has felt defeated. Every kid believing they can't because they don't have a glossy magazine story or the right upbringing. The crowd stirred, whispers rippling through them, a mix of surprise and admiration settling like a blanket of support over him. He could see the reporters, pencils poised, ready to capture the moment. Mike's confidence faltered for just a second, but he quickly regained control. Oh please, Mike scoffed, crossing his arms. You think your past gives you some kind of edge? People don't want to listen to a tragic tale, they want results. Just remember, unless you can back up your words on the track, it amounts to nothing. A pulse of fury ran through Marcus, but he kept it in check, channeling the emotion instead into determination. This wasn't about Mike or his sneers. This was about the truth he had begun to embrace. It was not merely the thrill of racing but a deeper journey to reclaim his identity. I'm not afraid of the track, he asserted, looking directly into Mike's eyes. I'm afraid of not being true to myself. It's taken step after step, falling down, getting up, and I'm not stopping now. I refuse to be a victim of my circumstances. The crowd erupted once more, a tidal wave of support that swept through the tension. With every voice raised in agreement, Marcus felt a warmth spread through him. His message was resonating. He was not just fighting for himself, but for anyone who had ever felt lost. Jesse's eyes softened, filled with admiration, while the reporters shouted questions, trying to capture the fervor of the moment. He could even see the ripple of joy in the faces around him. His courage ignited something they could relate to too, but as he soaked in the support, glimmers of doubt crept back in. Was he truly ready for Mike's retaliation? How far would that rivalry push him? And beyond the haze of the excited crowd, blazing cameras, and frenetic reporters, could he really live up to the inspiration he wanted to be? "Let us see what you're made of on the track, Marcus," Mike sneered before slipping back into the crowd, his shadow lingering like a challenge. The stakes were higher than ever, and Marcus knew he needed to sharpen his focus. As he stood there, the cheers of encouragement surrounding him, the glow of possibility surged. Racing was only one part of the journey. What awaited him next? The next race loomed, the track whispering promises of triumph and tribulation. Would he rise to the occasion, or would the pressures crush him? The road ahead was daunting, but with every heartbeat, the prospect of proving himself fueled his spirit. Yet, even with the support, doubts lurked like shadows waiting for the perfect moment to strike. It was all a part of his journey, and soon he would face a test greater than the race itself. Would courage prevail, or would fear take the wheel? Only time would tell. Marcus stood at the edge of the track, feeling the hum of the engines vibrating through the ground and into his bones. He had trained for this moment, pouring every ounce of sweat and heart into his preparations. But standing there, surrounded by the pounding of his heart and the atmosphere thick with anticipation, he felt the weight of what lay ahead. The crowd's cheers felt distant now, merging into a singular roar that echoed in his ears. He took a deep breath, trying to inhale the energy that buzzed all around him. Jessie was right next to him, a loyal presence, her eyes sparkling with encouragement. She had stood by him through it all, a reminder that he wasn't fighting this battle alone. "Remember what you said," she urged, gently squeezing his arm. "Just be true to yourself." Her words wrapped around him like a warm embrace. He nodded, grateful for her support, and then turned to focus on the track. He spotted Mike across the pit area, looking like a wolf ready to pounce, surrounded by an entourage of smug faces and overconfident laughter. There he was, a reminder of everything he had fought against. As the racers revved their engines, Marcus felt the adrenaline spike. The tension in the air was almost electric, propelling him forward despite the fear that gnawed at his stomach. A thought crossed his mind: was this race just about speed and skill, or was it about something deeper? The siren blared, cutting through the noise and signaling their time to leave the paddock. Marcus slid into his car, the familiar scent of racing fuel and worn leather enveloping him. Each gear shift, each sensation of the cold metal against his palms, was a reminder of the countless hours he had put into mastering this craft. As the countdown began, he could feel his heart pounding against his chest, a steady drum calling him to action. 1, 2, 3, and then it began. The green flag waved, and the engine roared to life. He slammed down on the accelerator, shooting forward as the world blurred around him. The sound of tires screeching against asphalt filled his ears, drowning out everything else. This was his sanctuary, the place where he could pour out every ounce of passion, every drop of hope. But as he slid into the first turn, Mike was right on his tail, his car like a shadow, threatening to overtake. The memory of Mike's ridicule flickered in his mind, igniting a fire within him. He wouldn't let fear consume him, he would fight against it. Focus. He reminded himself. The trick was to remain calm, to dance with the machine rather than let it own him. In the following laps, Marcus found his rhythm, but every glimmer of success brought whispers of uncertainty. What if he made a mistake? What if he couldn't keep up? Each time the doubt crept in, he thought of Jessie, of all those who cheered for him. He couldn't just race against his competitors, he was racing against the weight of expectations, his own and those of everyone watching. Each tight corner seemed to personify that fear, a reminder of his past. He navigated it like a tightrope walker, fighting for balance as the memories threatened to pull him down, but then, after a heart-thumping back and forth with Mike, he found a surge of confidence. Maybe he was along the right path. He could prove himself, not just to Mike, but to everyone in that crowd, and most importantly, to himself. As he crossed the finish line, he felt a wave of exhilaration wash over him. Victory was sweet, but the real win was in how far he had come, how he had risen against the odds. He glanced at the crowd and saw people on their feet, clapping and cheering like he had just changed the world, yet, even amid the triumph, a thought ignited in his mind. What if this race was just the beginning? What lay beyond the finish line, beyond the victory? And as he soaked in the moment, he heard Mike's voice echo in his head, "Let us see what you're made of on the track." The unending rivalry was far from over. What other challenges awaited him, not just on the track, but in life? Would he be able to confront those head-on? The next race was already looming, and with it, new tests that could either break him or make him stronger. What exactly would Marcus do to defend his newfound identity? The journey was only just beginning. The sun hung high over the track, casting long shadows from the grandstands where the crowd continued to roar, celebrating Marcus's recent triumph. It felt surreal, as if he were floating above the ground. But just beneath that euphoric surface was a rush of anxiety, swirling and boiling. That he let out a deep breath, the air heavy with the scents of gasoline and sweat, grounding him once again. Jessie was quickly by his side, her face beaming with pride, but Marcus knew the whirlwind wasn't over. The thought that a true battle awaited him in the next race lingered like a specter, haunting him with what lay ahead. "Did you feel that?" Jessie asked, her enthusiasm infectious. "The way they reacted? You were strong out there." "Yeah," but he rubbed the back of his neck, absently trying to shake off the nagging doubt. "Mike will be coming back harder next time. He won't take this lightly." "It doesn't matter what Mike does. What matters is how you respond," she replied, her blue eyes sharpening with intensity. "You put in the work. Trust yourself." As the celebration around them began to fade, Marcus found himself tuning into the voices of the crowd, sensing the camaraderie of a community that celebrated him. They cheered not just for victory but for the journey it took to get there. It was a bond forged in adrenaline and grit. But then uncertainty clawed back at his mind, reminding him of the fear of failing, fear of disappointing them, of himself. While he processed that, Marcus felt a tap on his shoulder. He turned and found a young boy staring at him, wide-eyed and hopeful. The boy was holding a small piece of paper and a crayon, his cheeks smeared with ice cream. "Can I have your autograph?" the boy asked, clutching the makeshift paper. Marcus knelt down, his stomach flooding with warmth. He realized in that moment, he was not just racing for himself anymore. This was bigger. These kids saw him as a hero. With a smile, he took the crayon and signed his name, making sure to draw a little flame beside it. The boy's eyes lit up even brighter. "Thanks. You're the coolest." He ran off, clutching the paper as if it were a treasure. "See?" Jessie said softly, her voice thick with emotion. "You're more than just a racer now." Marcus looked at Jessie's encouraging smile, and something shifted within him. With each signature, each overwhelming cheer, he was transforming into something he had never fully grasped before, a role model. It was as if the track had expanded, revealing layers of purpose he hadn't known existed. Yet, as practices began for the upcoming race, shadows of doubt nudged their way back in. Would he really be able to handle the pressure? Each practice lap became a test of endurance and self-belief. The more he raced, the more he felt the weight of what success demanded. Then came that moment. Mid-practice, in a surge of speed, he pushed the limits of his car. The engine roared like a lion, and for a split second, everything clicked. This was his sanctuary, he belonged here. But just as quickly, the memory of Mike's sneer flashed in his mind. That shadow loomed larger. As the final lap concluded, a mix of exhilaration and dread washed over him. He wasn't just up against the clock or the other racers now, he was also battling the specter of his past ambitions, deeply intertwined with the present. "Hey!" Jessie called as he stepped out of the car. "You were fantastic." "What's wrong?" "Nothing, just thinking," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady, even as his heart raced. With every day leading up to the next race, the stakes grew higher. It was a relentless cycle of pushing and pulling between joy and fear, confidence and doubt. And he knew he couldn't face it alone. "Jess, what if I can't keep doing this?" he finally confessed, his voice barely a whisper. "Then we'll find a way together. You're not alone in this," she reassured him, her words steady like a heartbeat, but as he looked out over the track, his thoughts drifted to Mike, the upcoming challenge. Would this rivalry ignite something within him that could not only break the barriers of racing but his own barriers as well? Could he rise in a moment that echoed everything he had fought against? With a rush of purpose, he squared his shoulders. The real race was just about to begin. What would he discover about himself in that moment of truth? Would he emerge as the champion he dreamed to be, or would he fall into the shadows that lurked beyond the finish line? The immediate days that followed the practice were a whirlwind of emotions. Marcus awoke each morning to the relentless echoes of engines revving and tires burning against asphalt. It wasn't just the sound of racing that filled his mind, it was the pressure that accompanied it. He spent countless hours reviewing footage, his mind weighing every decision he made on the track. Each time he caught glimpses of Mike's car in the videos, that sneer flashed again, irritating him. He could almost hear his rival whispering doubt into his heart. It was maddening, this cycle of confidence only to be undercut by fear. He needed to break it before the next race. Jessie found him in the garage one afternoon, huddled over a diagram of the racetrack. The way he studied it was almost obsessive. She leaned against the doorframe, watching him work. He looked up, catching her gaze. "What do you see?" she asked, stepping inside the space, letting the light wash over him. "Every corner is a battle, every straightaway a chance," he said, frustration mingling with determination in his voice. "But each time I think I have it figured out, I see Mike." She took a step closer, her expression softening. "Marcus, he's not the only one out there. You've got support. You've got talent. You know that, but he keeps pushing all the right buttons," he admitted, running a hand through his hair. "Maybe he's right, you know. Maybe I shouldn't be here." The silence that followed was heavy, thick with unspoken thoughts. Jessie moved right beside him, her presence comforting. "You're not just here to win races. You're here because you love it and because you inspire others. You have to remember all those kids, the ones who look up to you." His breath caught in his throat at her words. He thought back to the boy with the crayon, the excited eyes full of dreams. "But, what if I let them down?" Her hand landed softly on his shoulder. "You owe it to yourself, and to them, to try. Trust me, it's not just about the wins. It's the journey that counts." Marcus nodded, letting her words sink in. He finally noticed the sun crawling down the sky, casting a golden hue through the garage. He felt alive, charged. He wanted to feel that rush again, to grab it with both hands, amidst the fear. They worked side by side, preparing his car. As he tightened bolts and adjusted inflatable tires, his doubts slowly began to fade. Confidence surged, racing alongside anticipation, pushing out the lingering dread. The night before the big race, Marcus lay awake, his mind replaying the moments of triumph and hardship, victories and regrets. But in that darkness, he also let in hope. He thought of all the people cheering him on, of Jessie's unwavering support. The morning of the race, the atmosphere crackled with energy. It was electric, palpable. He made his way to the starting line, stepping out of the car and feeling the heat of the sun on his back. The crowd was roaring, and he could see familiar faces mixed in with throngs of followers. As engines revved and the announcer's voice spilled over the air, Marcus could finally feel the fears dissipating. The energy was a wave, sweeping him up, carrying him to the forefront of his thoughts. He lined up alongside Mike, the tension thick enough to slice through. Marcus's heart raced, but now it felt good. It was no longer just anxiety, it was the adrenaline of competition. Then, as the lights began to flash, he focused. Every motion, every heartbeat aligned with the roar of the engines around him. This was it, time to put it all on the line. The countdown blared in his ears, and as the green light surged before him, Marcus was ready, but just as they surged forward, he caught a shift in Mike's gaze. Something dark glimmered behind it. Was it determination or just desperation? In that split second, he wondered what would happen when they crossed paths on the track. Would his inner conflict propel him ahead, or would it lead to an all-out collision that neither could recover from? As the roar of the engines reached a deafening crescendo, he gripped the steering wheel tighter and accelerated into the unknown. What would this race reveal about his true strength? Would he conquer the past and race into the future? The engines roared to life, a hurricane of sound that shook Marcus to his core. The smell of burning rubber and fueled adrenaline filled the air, sparking a sense of belonging deeper than any comfort he'd felt in a long time. It was no longer about just racing, it was about every late-night thought, every kid's hope, every ounce of hardship that had brought him to this very moment at the starting line. As the green flag waved, they shot forward like arrows released from a bow. Marcus felt the rush flood through him, but this wasn't just his race anymore. It was a testament to the journey, a statement. As they rounded the first corner, he leaned into the curve, heart pounding and blood racing. He could feel Mike's South car close behind him, the threat looming like a shadow, but he shook off the fear and focused. Stay in control, he reminded himself, channeling every moment of preparation. With the track sprawling out in front of him, he utilized all he had learned. Every turn dialed into muscle memory, each straightaway filled with pure intent. With every lap, he gained momentum, pushing beyond what he thought possible. The crowd was a sea of faces, voices blending into one wild cheer that enveloped him like a warm embrace. Smiles reflected hope, and he found himself smiling back, embracing that energy. This was the support he needed, the kind that bolstered him when he feared the worst. But then there was Mike, fierce and relentless. Every time Marcus pulled a lead, Mike was right there, cutting corners and pushing harshly. It rattled him, but in that chaos, he remembered the little boy's face, the admiration radiating like sunlight. Mid-race, something shifted. As they approached lap 10, Mike executed an aggressive maneuver, getting far too close for comfort. Their cars bumped, metal clashing under pressure. Marcus's adrenaline surged as doubt threatened to creep back in, but he fought it off. This was his moment, not just for racing, but to reclaim his identity and show everyone, including himself, who he really was. Not today. He thought firmly, gripping the steering wheel tighter. Ignoring the initial jolt of intimidation, he pushed hard, darting into a tight corner. Mike followed suit, but the brief distraction sent him slightly off track. In that instant, Marcus seized his chance, barreling forward with renewed fervor. As the laps dwindled down, the weight of expectation transformed into a soaring energy. Each turn, each push toward the finish line felt like a declaration. He was here to claim his future, to redefine his legacy. As they approached the final lap, the entire world faded. It was just him, the car, and the track, a singular focus. The crowd erupted into a thrumming pulse as he crossed the finish line, heart racing with both triumph and disbelief. His car lurched to a stop, and for a moment, silence enveloped him, a comforting, profound silence before the cheers erupted. He had done it. With the growing rumble of excitement swelling behind him, he climbed out of his car, staggering into the embrace of victory. Cheers erupted around him, their deafening applause crashing against him like waves of validation. The emotion was overwhelming, and just behind that shoulder of victory, he felt the sting of what he had conquered, not just the race, but an entire lifetime of fears, judgments, and stigma. In that moment, he didn't see a racetrack or a trophy, he saw community, family, and hope. Jessie rushed to him, laughter mingling with her tears, wrapping him in a hug. "You did it, Marcus. You did it." "We did it," he corrected, nodding toward the crowd. They had believed in him when he had doubted himself. The warm, golden sun cast a glow on their faces, realizing this victory was theirs, forged by unity, resilience, and courage. Then, out of the chaos, he spotted Mike. The rival was on the sidelines, watching with simmering resentment the look of a man who had lost, but Marcus felt no malice in his heart. This wasn't about winning for him anymore. It was about all those who had come to support him and what it meant for their future. As he stepped toward his rival, he extended a hand. "Good race, Mike. Let us push each other to be better together." The crowd fell into an astonished silence, and Mike blinked in surprise before taking Marcus's hand, albeit begrudgingly, a mutual support evident in that handshake. The cheers turned into a thunderous applause as the two men embodied a newfound respect. While the rivalry would continue, it now bore the markings of a journey filled with lessons shared and a bond forged through struggle. As he took a moment to look around, the familiar faces of kids and families shone back at him, resonating a promise that went further than racetrack glory. They filled the air with chants of his name, and he felt a wave of warmth wash over him. All of a sudden, standing there with a radiant smile, he understood, this wasn't just a victory lap, it was the beginning of a legacy. "Remember this moment, everyone," Marcus shouted, his voice carrying over the noise of excitement. "Believe in your dreams, even when the world doubts you. Together, we rise." The crowd erupted into cheers once more, and as the celebration unfolded, he realized something remarkable. Knowing that they were all in it together, community, family, support was the greatest victory of all. Marcus had reclaimed not just his legacy as a racer, but the spirit of resilience that had been regardless of the challenges he faced. And in that spirit, they all raced forward, together, ready to take on whatever lay ahead. It was time to ride. You need to subscribe now to catch all the incredible stories that come next. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to keep the magic alive and feed the algorithm. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Every action counts. Comment below your thoughts and feelings, it means the world.